get out of the car, but keep watching. Let's take a call as we watch from Binghamton, New York for Jim Hoge. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Hoge. I'd like to ask you why we can't get Russia to sit down at the bargaining table or go through some UN type of thing and find out about the POWs that Russia has. At the end of World War II, when Russia liberated POW camps, especially down around Austria, they took American, German-held POWs back up into Russia. And at the end of World War II, we never got those fellows back. And I believe myself that a lot of POWs, like from Vietnam and Korea, are probably back up into Russia too. And I think an investigation with the veterans, with the VA and with the DAV, there's veterans in these places that could testify as to what happened to a lot of these men.
Thanks.
Well, I think for the first time we are seeing the kind of cooperation that it will take to determine whether there are any POW or MIAs left in the ex-Soviet Union. Now, prior to Boris Yeltsin and the coup of August a year ago, there simply was not in place a government that would cooperate with us on that. The communist government, even in its perestroikian phase, was not about to admit that it had either POWs or MIAs that it had been unwilling to tell us about earlier. So I'm hopeful that now we will be finding out definitively what, if anything, there are in the way of POWs and MIAs at this time.
On the screen, the Senate of the United States arriving over in the House, the Vice President, Speaker of the House. As we watch, we'll take a call from Knoxville, Tennessee. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. First-time caller to C-SPAN. Just one fast comment regarding what I believe to be the shadow government that your guest is employed by. Wonder if your guest or you, Brian, have read the recent book written by Dr. Pat Robertson entitled New World Order. And if not, I'd like to, frankly, I'd like to recommend that book.
And what's the premise of it and the point that Mr. Robertson makes that you want Mr. Hoge to talk about?
Well, the premise is that there is, in fact, a shadow government, that there is a revolving door, if you will, of those people that show up on the national stage, namely George Bush and various presidents and various cabinet members that have all, in fact, come from the confines of the Council on Foreign Relations. They continue to come in and out of government, although they continue to be members on an ongoing basis of the Council on Foreign Relations. There are some chapters, and I don't have the book in front of me here, but there are some chapters and verses in there essentially referring to the Council on Foreign Relations that names and dates and places, etc.
All right, thanks. I think we get the point. Have you read it, Mr. Hoge?
No, I have not. I think I know what he's referring to, though. I just think it's nonsense. I know of no shadow government either involving the Council of Relations or anywhere else in the United States. And as for myself personally, I've never gone back and forth through any revolving doors in the government. I've been a journalist all my life, and actually one that made his reputation a good deal on investigative journalism, a lot of it having to do with keeping tabs on the government, both at the local, state, and national level in this country. Now, I don't think in trying to understand the very complex problems, domestic and international, that we have and the various political approaches that we may want to take, that to build up chimeras of conspiracies for which there is just no documentation is very helpful. It's a distraction at a time when we really need to be focusing in on real answers to real problems.
Our guest for the last hour has been Jim Hoge, and he is the new editor of this publication, which is called Foreign Affairs. Is it in any newsstands anywhere?
Yes, it is. There is. In fact, we sell out our newsstand sales, most copies.
But you can save a considerable amount of money if you order it up for a couple of years.
Absolutely.
I think it says here $38 for 2 years if you order it through the magazine. That's and right. It's $7.95 a copy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
We're still live here for a few minutes, and we're going to watch as the joint meeting gets underway. And you can see there on your screen the Speaker of the House. standing along with the Vice President. We're going to cut these calls off here whenever they proceed with this, but
the chair appoints as members of the committee on the part of the House to escort His Excellency Boris Yeltsin into the chamber, the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Gephardt, the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Hoyer, the gentleman from California, Mr. Fazio, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Fussell, the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Michael, the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Gingrich, the gentleman from California, Mr. Lewis, and the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Broomfield.
The President of the Senate, at the direction of that body, appoints the following senators as a committee and part of the Senate to escort the President of the Russian Federation into the House chamber. The Senator from Maine, Mr. Mitchell, the Senator from Arkansas, Mr. Pryor, the Senator from Rhode Island, Mr. Pell, the Senator from Hawaii, Mr. Inouye, the Senator from California, Mr. Cranston, the Senator from Georgia, Mr. Nunn, the Senator from Delaware, Mr. Biden, the Senator from Maryland, Mr. Sarbanes, the Senator from New York, Mr. Moynihan, the Senator from Georgia, Mr. Fowler, the Senator from Kansas, Mr. Dole, the Senator from Wyoming, Mr. Simpson, the Senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Nichols, the Senator from Mississippi, Mr. Cochran, the Senator from Wisconsin, Mr. Caston, the Senator from South Carolina, Mr. Thurman, the Senator from Indiana, Mr. Lugar, the Senator from South Dakota, Mr. Pressler, the Senator from Alaska, Mr. Murkowski, the Senator from Florida, Mr. Mack, the Senator from California, Mr. Seymour.
Will the members of the Escort Committee please exit the chamber through the lobby door?
we're going to continue taking a call and watching the events in the House with Jim Hoge, the editor of Foreign Affairs, and we have a caller on the line, I believe, from Los Angeles. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Gentlemen, I have a question in regards to our immigration policy between Mexico and Latin America and Haiti. We're aggressively turning back the Haitian economic refugees, which is what I believe they are. But we seem to be impotent as far as turning back this basically invasion in Southern California of illegal immigrants. And it's not based on race, it's based on the fact that they're having a tremendous negative economic impact on housing, health care, and everything else. And why isn't the government doing anything about enforcing the law?
Thanks. Mr. Hoge.
Well, as far as immigration across the Mexican border is concerned, we have for some time spent many hundreds of millions of dollars attempting to control it. There are several things that make it a very difficult problem. One is the length of that border, going through very desolate land and how easy it is to cross. The second thing that makes it difficult is that there are a number of jobs in this country that nobody else will take, and therefore those coming across to be employed are wanted in some parts of our economic sector. Now, I think the long-term answer to immigration across the Mexican border probably lies in such things as the North American Free Trade Treaty, which the President is trying to get passed at the moment, that would assist in what seems to be a major economic revival and growth going on in Mexico today. And only when that becomes a more prosperous country will there be less of a reason for many of its poor to be coming to our country.
You told us earlier that you're writing a book. When is that going to be published?
Well, I would hope to have it published sometime next year.
Is it the kind of book that will be in the bookstores, a hardback, or is it for academics?
No, this is for the general reader.
They just announced, that was this doorkeeper, Jim Malloy, just announced the Diplomatic Corps. This is an area that you're going to be spending a lot of time with.
Yeah.
Have you spent much time yet around diplomats?
Yes, both when I was in Washington as a correspondent and in a number of trips that I've taken overseas as an editor, writing, and for various organizations that I belong to.
Is Foreign Affairs magazine read in these embassies?
Yes, I think so, very much so.
Do they look to this particular publication for any kind of does it belong to the diplomatic establishment? I mean, the Foreign Affairs officers and people like that? I mean, over the years, has it represented any particular point of view?
Well, as I say, it tries to represent across the spectrum, but more often than not, Foreign Affairs is viewed as being a sort of a centrist publication that does give you perhaps the best thinking among senior academics and the best known of our practitioners, past or present, in foreign policy, from the center, from slightly left of center and slightly right of center. It has not tended to be as provocative as, say, a more radical or fringe kind of publication might be. I think it is looked at by the diplomatic establishment as being a very good bellwether to how the serious thinking in the United States is going in terms of major problems and in terms of foreign policy approaches.
If you just joined us, Jim Hoge is our guest as we wait for the arrival of Boris Yeltsin, the president of Russia. What's the significance of this speech?
Well, I think my guess is that this is going to be another major part of the agenda that Boris Yeltsin set for this summit meeting, which was to cast aside any remaining doubts that Russia and the United States are on a different path, and essentially, from his point of view, a constructive path in which they will try to be partners addressing the major issues of the world and damping down conflicts as we see them. The second part, which is more specifically Russian, is, I think, to say to the American people, we truly intend to return Russia to, quote, the civilized world, to create a civil society of our own. My guess is that underlying this is Boris Yeltsin's hope that he can persuade the Congress to vote favorably for the aid package that is now in front of it.
How would you grade Boris Yeltsin's visit so far?
No, I think it's been a success. I think the one downside so far has been his announcement that they are looking through KGB files and will make available any information, and indeed will allow some of our specialists to come over on the POW-MIA question, has to some extent, I think, backfired. I don't think he expected to hear from the Congress, as he has from some members of the Congress, that until this issue is resolved, they see no way to move forward on the aid package. I think he had assumed that his show of willingness to be cooperative on this issue would actually contribute to the Congress's ability to look favorably upon the aid package.
Jim Hoge's been our guest. He's originally from New York City. He's now the editor of Foreign Affairs magazine, and we thank you for joining us, and we'll watch as Mr. Yeltsin is announced here shortly, and watch his speech. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the Russian Federation.
Members of the Congress, it is my great privilege, and I deem it a high honor and personal pleasure, to present to you His Excellency Boris Yeltsin, President of the Russian Federation.
Я прошу аплодисменты не засчитывать на время моего выступления.
Please don't count the applaud against the time that I have been allotted for speaking.
Уважаемый господин спикер Палаты представителей, уважаемый президент Сената, уважаемые члены Конгресса, дамы и господа, я имею высокую честь выступить здесь, в Конгрессе великой и свободной страны, как впервые за тысячелетнюю историю России всенародно избранный президент, как гражданин великой державы, сделавший свой выбор в пользу свободы и демократии.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, members of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to address the Congress of the great land of freedom as the first ever, over 1,000 years of history of Russia, popularly elected president, as a citizen of the great country which has made its choice in favor of liberty and democracy.
Долгие годы наши государства представляли собой два полюса, две крайние противоположности. Нас хотели сделать непримиримыми врагами, и это самым трагическим образом отражалось на судьбе человечества. Мир сотрясали штормы конфронтаций. Он был близок к тому, чтобы взорваться, умереть и не воскреснуть. Теперь этот дьявольский сценарий уходит в прошлое. Разум одерживает верх в борьбе с безумием. Завершился период, когда Америка и Россия держали друг друга под прицелом и в любой момент были готовы нажать на спусковой крючок. Вспоминая известный американский фильм «На следующий день», сегодня можно сказать, следующий день будет мирным. В этом дне будет меньше страха и больше надежды на счастье наших детей. Мир может вздохнуть спокойно. Коммунистический идол, который сеял повсюду на земле социальную рознь, вражду и беспримерную жестокость, который наводил страх на человеческое сообщество, рухнул. Рухнул навсегда. И я здесь для того, чтобы заверить вас, на нашей земле мы не дадим ему воскреснуть.
For many years, our two nations were the two poles, the two opposites. They wanted to make us implacable enemies. That affected the destinies of the world in a most tragic way. The world was shaken by the storms of confrontation. It was close to exploding, close to perishing beyond salvation. That evil scenario is becoming a thing of the past. Reason begins to triumph over madness. We have left behind the period when America and Russia looked at each other through gun sights, ready to pull the trigger at any time. Despite what we saw in the well-known American film, The Day After, it can be said today, tomorrow will be a day of peace, a day less of fear and more of hope for the happiness of our children. The world can sigh in relief. The idol of communism, which spread everywhere social strife, animosity, and unparalleled brutality, which instilled fear in humanity, has collapsed. It has collapsed never to rise again. I am here to assure you, we shall not let it rise again in our land.
Я горжусь тем, что российский народ нашел в себе силы и сумел сбросить с плеч тяжелую махину тоталитарной системы. Я горжусь тем, что говорю здесь от имени великого народа, который вновь обретает свое достоинство. Я преклоняюсь перед простым россиянином, который в самых тяжелых испытаниях сберег душу и идет сегодня на неимоверное лишение во имя возрождения своей Родины. Россия окончательно сделала выбор в пользу цивилизации, здравого смысла, общечеловеческого опыта. Убежден, что наш народ обязательно осилит этот нелегкий путь. Нет в мире народа, которому был бы вреден воздух свободы. И это правило не имеет исключений.
I'm proud that the people of Russia have found strength to shake off the crushing burden of the totalitarian system. I am proud that I am addressing you on behalf of the great people whose dignity is restored. I admire ordinary Russian men and women who, in spite of severe trials, have preserved their intellectual integrity and are enduring tremendous hardships for the sake of the revival of their country. Russia has made its final choice in favor of a civilized way of life, common sense, and universal human heritage. I am convinced that our people will reach that goal. There is no people on this earth who could be harmed by the air of freedom. There are no exceptions to that rule.
Свобода раскрепощает ум питает оригинальные дерзкие идеи и концепции, но не обеспечивает немедленно процветание, не наделяет каждого счастьем и благополучием. Это особенно важно помнить политикам. Самые благородные устремления неизбежно будут отброшены и преданы забвению, если не найдут прямого продолжения в повседневной черновой работе. Наш опыт последних лет ярко подтверждает это. Свободу не обмануть. Не может существовать демократия и тоталитарное государство и система структур. Не может сосуществовать рыночная экономика и возможность командовать всем и вся. Не может сосуществовать плюралистическое по своей природе гражданское общество и коммунистическая нетерпимость к инакомыслию. Опыт минувших десятилетий научил нас, коммунизм не имеет человеческого облика. Свобода и коммунизм несовместимы.
Liberty sets the mind free, fosters independent and unorthodox thinking and ideas, but it does not offer instant prosperity or happiness and wealth to everyone. This is something that politicians in particular must keep in mind. Even the most benevolent intentions will inevitably be abandoned and committed to oblivion if they are not translated into everyday efforts. Our experience of the recent years has conclusively borne that out. Liberty will not be fooled. There can be no coexistence between democracy and a totalitarian state system. There can be no coexistence between market economy and power to control everything and everyone. There can be no coexistence between a civic society, which is pluralist by definition, and communist intolerance to dissent. The experience of the past decades has taught us communism has no human face. Freedom and communism are incompatible.
Вы помните август прошлого года, когда в течение 3 дней над Россией висела черная тень диктатуры. Я обращался к москвичам, защитникам российского Белого дома, обращался ко всем россиянинам, обращался с танка, чей экипаж не подчинился преступному приказу. Скажу искренне, тогда у меня было чувство страха, но чувство страха не за себя. Это был страх за судьбу демократии в России и во всем мире. Я знал, что могло произойти, если мы не победим.
You will recall August 1991, when for 3 days Russia was under the dark cloud of dictatorship. I addressed the Muscovites who were defending the White House of Russia. I addressed all the people of Russia. I addressed them standing on top of the tank whose crew had disobeyed criminal orders. I will be candid with you. At that moment I feared, but I had no fear for myself. I feared for the future of democracy in Russia and throughout the world, because I was aware what could happen if we failed to win.
Граждане России защитили свою свободу и не допустили, чтобы 75-летний кошмар повторился вновь. С этой высокой трибуны я хотел бы выразить искреннюю благодарность президенту и признательность президенту Соединенных Штатов Америки господину Джорджу Бушу, американскому народу за неоценимую моральную поддержку правого дела российского народа в тот период.
Citizens of Russia upheld their freedom and did not allow the continuation of the 75 years of nightmare. From this high rostrum, I want to express our sincere thanks and gratitude to President Bush and to the American people for their invaluable moral support for the just cause of the people of Russia.
В прошлом году граждане России выдержали еще один нелегкий экзамен на зрелость. Мы сумели преодолеть в себе чувство мести, не дали опьянить себя желанию немедленной и жестокой расправы над поверженным колоссом по имени КПСС. История не повторилась. Партийная цитадель неподалеку от Кремля, коммунистическая Бастилия, не была разрушена. В стране не появилось даже признаков насилия над коммунистами. Люди просто стряхнули с себя ядовитую пыль прошлого и вернулись к своим делам. Российский суд Линча не состоялся. Сейчас многолетние деяния коммунистической партии предмет рассмотрения Конституционного суда Российской Федерации. Не сомневаюсь, он вынесет справедливый приговор.
Last year, citizens of Russia passed another difficult test of maturity. We choose to forgo vengeance and the intoxicating craving for summary justice over the fallen colossus known under the name of the CPSU. There was no replay of history. The Communist Party citadel next to the Kremlin, the Communist Bastille, was not destroyed. There was not a hint of violence against communists in Russia. People simply brushed off the venomous dust of the past and went about their business. There was no lynch law trials in Russia. The doings of the Communist Party over many years have been referred to the Constitutional Court of the Russian Federation. I am confident that its verdict will be fair.
Россия на своем опыте убедилась, любое промедление в укреплении свободы и демократии может отбросить общество далеко назад. Сегодня для нас как никогда актуален зловещий урок прошлого. Именно в разрушенной стране с обескровленной экономикой большевизм сумел создать тоталитарный режим, гигантскую военную машину, запустить ненасытный военно-промышленный комплекс. Это не должно повториться. Вот почему задач для России сегодня – это проведение экономических и политических реформ. Перед нами стоят проблемы, которые еще никому в мире не приходилось решать одновременно. Нужно обеспечить беспрецедентное реформирование экономики, которая за 7 десятилетий лишилась всех рыночных механизмов, заложить основы демократии, возродить правовое государство в стране, которая десятилетиями отравлялась ядом социальной розни и политического подавления, обеспечить на период преобразований социальную и политическую стабильность в стране, сохранение гражданского мира. В этом сложнейшем деле у нас нет права на неудачу, нет дополнительных попыток, как в спорте. Все они были использованы нашими предшественниками. Поэтому реформы во что бы то ни стало нужно довести до конца. Вселяет в меня силы поддержка большинства граждан России. Россияне уже поняли, что нет другого пути, кроме пути реформ. И это очень важно. Конечно, мне, как и всем в России, трудно, нелегко, тяжело и лично. Но во всех делах надежной опорой для меня все это время была моя жена и большая моя семья.
Russia has seen for itself that any delay in strengthening the foundations of freedom and democracy can throw the society far back. For us, the ominous lesson of the past is relevant today as never before. It was precisely in a devastated country with an economy in near paralysis that Bolshevism succeeded in building a totalitarian regime, creating a gigantic war machine and an insatiable military-industrial complex. This must not be allowed to happen again. That is why economic and political reforms are the primary task for Russia today. We are facing the challenges that no one has ever faced before at any one time. We must carry through unprecedented reforms in the economy that over the 7 decades has been stripped of all market infrastructure, lay the foundations for democracy and restore the rule of law in the country that for scores of years was poisoned with social strife and political oppression, guarantee domestic, social and political stability as well as maintenance of civil peace. We have no right to fail in this most difficult endeavor, for there will be no second try, as in sports. Our predecessors have used them all up. The reforms must succeed. I am given strength by the support of the majority of the citizens of Russia. The people of Russia are aware that there is no alternative to reform, and that this is very important. My job, as everybody else's in Russia, is not an easy one, but in everything I do, I have the reliable and invaluable support of my wife and of my entire large family.
Сегодня я говорю вам так, как говорю своим соотечественникам. От реформ не отступлю, а сместить меня практически до 96-го года невозможно. Я здоров и не сдамся, пока реформа не будет необратимой. Мы чувствуем колоссальную ответственность за успех наших преобразований не только перед российским народом, но и перед гражданами Соединенных Штатов Америки, перед всем человечеством. Сегодня свобода Америки защищается в России. И если реформы провалятся, придется заплатить многие сотни миллиардов долларов, чтобы хоть как-то компенсировать эту потерю.
Today I am telling you what I tell my fellow countrymen. I will not go back on the reforms. And it is practically impossible to topple Yeltsin in Russia. I am in good health. And I will not say uncle before I make the reforms irreversible. We realize our great responsibility for the success of our changes, not only toward the people of Russia, but also towards the citizens of America and of the entire world. Today, the freedom of America is being upheld in Russia. Should the reforms fail, it will cost hundreds of billions to upset that failure.
Вчера достигнуто беспрецедентное соглашение о глубоких сокращениях стратегических наступательных вооружений в два этапа. Причем не на 30-40%, как раньше, и договаривались 15 лет, а более чем в 3 раза. С 21 тысячи боеголовок до 6-7 тысяч договорились всего за 5 месяцев эту всю работу провести к 2000 году. И я очень надеюсь, что мы с Бушем доживем до этого года.
Yesterday, we concluded an unprecedented agreement on cutting down strategic offensive arsenals. They will be reduced radically in 2 phases, not by 30 or 40% as negotiated previously over 15 years. They will be slashed to less than 1/3 of today's strength, from 21,000
Мы просто не
from
имеем
21,000 nuclear warheads on both sides down to 6,000-7,000 by the year 2000. And it has taken us only 5 months to negotiate. And I fervently hope that George Bush and myself will be there in the year 2000 to preside over that.
Мы просто не имеем права похоронить эту уникальную возможность. Тем более, что сегодня судьбы ядерного оружия и российских реформ, призванных навсегда устранить возможность тоталитарной диктатуры в России, оказались столь драматически связаны. Заявляю вам, у нас есть твердая решимость и политическая воля идти вперед. И мы доказали это на деле. И именно Россия покончила с имперской политикой и признала первыми независимость республик Прибалтики. Россия была в числе основателей Содружества независимых государств, которое преградило путь неконтролируемому распаду бывшей империи, отвело опасность всеобщей межнациональной бойни. Россия предоставила реальные права своим автономиям, подписан федеративный договор, и наше государство избежало участи Советского Союза, Россия сохранила свое единство. И именно Россия существенно замедлила скорость маховика милитаризации и делает все, чтобы остановить его. Я ответственно заявляю, мы, не дожидаясь подписания договора или соглашения, приступили уже, и подтвердит здесь министр обороны России присутствующий, к снятию из боевого дежурства ракет тяжелых СС-18, нацеленных на Соединенные Штаты Америки.
We have simply no right to miss this unique opportunity, the more so that nuclear arms and the future of the Russian reforms designed to make impossible any restoration of the totalitarian dictatorship in Russia are so dramatically interrelated. I am here to say that we have the firm determination and the political will to move forward. We have proved that by what we have done. It is Russia that has put an end to the imperial policies and was the first to recognize the independence of the Baltic republics. Russia is a founding member of the Commonwealth of Independent States, which has averted uncontrolled disintegration of the former empire and the threat of a general interethnic bloodbath. Russia has granted tangible powers to its autonomous republics. The Treaty of Federation has been signed, and our nation has escaped the fate of the Soviet Union. Russia has preserved its unity. It was Russia that has substantially slowed down the flywheel of militarization and is doing all it can to stop it altogether. I am formally announcing that without waiting for the treaty to be signed, we have begun taking off alert the heavy SS-18 missiles targeted on the United States of America and the Defense Minister of Russia. And the Defense Minister of Russia is here in this room to confirm that.
Россия привела в соответствии с торжественными декларациями последних лет свою практическую политику в отношении ряда стран. Мы прекратили поставки вооружений в Афганистан, где в мясорубке бессмысленной военной авантюры погибли тысячи граждан России и афганцев. Лишившись внешних подпорок, марионеточный режим в Афганистане рухнул. Мы устранили известные перекосы в отношениях с Кубой. Теперь эта страна – один из наших партнеров в Латинской Америке. Мы торгуем с ней на общепринятой взаимовыгодной основе по мировым ценам. И именно Россия раз и навсегда отбросила практику двойных стандартов во внешней политике. Мы не намерены больше лгать ни своим партнерам по переговорам, ни российскому, ни американскому, ни какому другому народу. С такой практикой покончено навсегда. Это касается экспериментов с бактериологическим оружием и известных теперь фактов по американским военнопленным, корейскому Боингу и многое другое. Этот перечень можно было бы продолжить. Открываются архивы КГБ и бывшего ЦК КПСС. Более того, мы приглашаем Соединенные Штаты и другие государства к сотрудничеству в расследовании этих темных страниц бывшей империи.
Russia has brought its policies towards a number of countries in line with its solemn declarations of the recent years. We have stopped arms deliveries to Afghanistan, where the senseless military adventure has taken thousands of Russian and hundreds of thousands of Afghan lives. With external props removed, the puppet regime collapsed. We have corrected the well-known imbalances in relations with Cuba. At present, that country is one of our Latin American partners. Our commerce with Cuba is based on universally accepted principles and world prices. It is Russia that once and for all has done away with double standards in foreign policy. We are firmly resolved not to lie anymore, either to our negotiating partners or to the Russian or American or any other people. There will be no more lies, ever. The same applies to biological weapon experiments and the facts that have been revealed about American prisoners of war, the KL-007 flight, and many other things. That list could be continued. The archives of the KGB and the Communist Party Central Committee are being opened. Moreover, we are inviting the cooperation of the United States and other nations to investigate these dark pages.
Обещаю вам, будет просмотрен каждый документ в каждом архиве, чтобы выяснить судьбу каждого американца, пропавшего без вести. Я, как президент, вас заверяю, если хоть один американец был задержан у нас, и его еще можно найти, то я его найду. Я верну его семье.
I promise you that each and every document in each and every archive will be examined in order to investigate the fate of every American unaccounted for. As President of Russia, I assure you that even if one American has been detained in my country and can still be found, I will find him. I will get him back to his family.
Я благодарю вас за аплодисменты.
I thank you for the applause.
Я видел, что встали все.
I could see everybody rise.
Но кое-кто из вставших сегодня на страницах американской печати заявил, что пока Ельцин не найдет последнего американца и его судьбу, давайте не принимать закон о поддержке свободы. Также понимать. Раньше говорили, что этого вопроса не существует. Ельцин открыл архивы, пригласил вместе с американской комиссией действовать дальше и докопаться до судьбы каждого американца, а его предупреждают сейчас. Нет, ты сначала эту работу сделай, а потом мы решим и примем закон о поддержке свободы. Мне это непонятно.
Some of you have just risen here to applaud me, have also written in the press that until Yeltsin gets things done and gets all the job done, there should be no Freedom Support Act passing through the Congress. Well, I don't really quite understand you, ladies and gentlemen. This matter has been investigated and is being investigated. Yeltsin has already opened the archives and is inviting you to join us in investigating the fate of each and every unaccounted for American. So now you are telling me, first do the job and then we shall support you in passing that act. I don't quite understand you.
Мы предприняли новые реальные шаги для того, чтобы существенно облегчить контакты российских и зарубежных деловых кругов. Издан законодательный документ, в соответствии с которым иностранные граждане, приватизирующие тот или иной объект и сооружение в нашей стране, получают в собственность также и участок земли, на котором он расположен. Принят законодательный акт о банкротстве. Отменена обязательная продажа валюты государству по искусственно заниженному курсу. Мы готовы идти на максимальное приближение нашей правовой практики к мировой, конечно, на симметричной основе с каждой страной. Мы приглашаем американский частный капитал на уникальный и малоосвоенный российский рынок и говорим: не опоздайте.
We have made tangible moves to make contacts between Russian and foreign business communities much easier. Under a recent legislation, foreign nationals who privatize a facility or a building in Russia are given property rights to the plot of land on which they are located. Legislation on bankruptcy has been recently enacted. Mandatory sale of foreign currency to the state at an artificially low rate of exchange has been ended. We are ready to bring our legal practice as much as possible in line with world standards, of course on the basis of symmetry with each country. We are inviting the private sector of the United States to invest in the unique and untapped Russian market, and I am saying, do not be late.
Сегодня, когда закончился период глобального противостояния, я призываю вас окинуть свежим взглядом сегодняшнюю политику Соединенных Штатов Америки на российском направлении, свежим взглядом взглянуть на перспективы наших отношений. Россия уже другая. Но скажу прямо, случается, что некоторые люди в вашей стране все еще пользуются концепциями и методиками прежней политики. Бывает, что старые, вызванные к жизни иной эпохой подходы искусственно подгоняются под новые реалии. Впрочем, все это в равной мере относится и к нам. Давайте вместе учиться разрешать споры на самой эффективной демократической основе, по-партнерски. Это и в духе американского и русского характера. Тогда отпадут многие проблемы, которые сегодня тормозят обоюдовыгодное сотрудничество между Россией и Соединенными Штатами, в том числе и по вопросам законодательской практики. Оно не потребует бесполезных жертв, а наоборот, позволит более эффективно решать и ваши, и наши проблемы. И прежде всего создаст новые дополнительные рабочие места не только в России, но в Соединенных Штатах Америки тоже. История представляет нам шанс воплотить в жизнь мечту президента Ельцина – сделать мир безопасным для демократии.
Now that the period of global confrontation is behind us, I call upon you to take a fresh look of the current policy of the United States towards Russia, and also to take a fresh look at the longer-term prospects of our relations. Russia is a different country today. Sometimes the obsolete standards brought into being by a different era are artificially imposed on new realities. True, that equally applies to us. Let us together, therefore, master the art of reconciling differences on the basis of partnership, which is the most efficient and democratic way. This would come naturally both for the Russians and the Americans. If this is done, many of the problems which are now impeding mutual advantageous cooperation between Russia and the United States will become irrelevant, and I mean legislative frameworks too. It will not be a wasteful endeavor. On the contrary, it will promote a more efficient solution of your problems as well as of ours. And of course, it will create new jobs in Russia as well as in the United States. History is giving us a chance to fulfill President Yeltsin's dream, namely to make the world safe for democracy.
Более 30 лет назад президент Соединенных Штатов Кеннеди обратился к человечеству со словами: «Мои сограждане во всем мире, не спрашивайте, что Америка может сделать для вас. Спросите, что все мы вместе можем сделать во имя свободы человека». Мне думается, что его дерзновенный призыв вместе пойти по пути создания демократического мира адресован прежде всего нашим народам, народу Америки, народу России. Партнерство и дружба двух крупнейших демократических государств для укрепления демократии – это воистину великая цель.
More than 30 years ago, President Kennedy addressed these words to humanity: "My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man." I believe that his inspired call for working together towards a democratic world is addressed above all to our two peoples, to the people of America and to the people of Russia. Partnership and friendship of our two largest democracies in strengthening democracy is indeed a great goal.
Вступая в мировое сообщество, мы хотим сохранить свою индивидуальность, особенности, своего характера, свою историю, развить культуру, укрепить духовные устои народа. Нам близко предостережение великого русского философа Бердяева: отрицание России во имя человечества есть ограбление человечества. Но Россия в одинаковой мере не стремится преобразовать мир по своему образу и подобию, не навязывать и принуждать, а щедро делиться, обмениваться опытом, духовными ценностями, душевным теплом. Вот фундаментальный принцип новой России. В традициях русского характера народа отвечать добром на добро. Это основа основ российской жизни, основополагающая истина, которой учит великая русская культура. Свободная демократическая Россия сохранит свою преданность этому завету. Сегодня свободная демократическая Россия протягивает руку дружбы американскому народу. Волей народа России я предлагаю вам и в вашем лице народу Соединенных Штатов стать на путь партнерства во имя свободы и справедливости в 21 веке.
Joining the world community, we wish to preserve our identity, our own image and history, promote culture and strengthen moral standards of our people. We find relevant the warning of the great Russian philosopher Berdyaev, who said, to negate Russia in the name of humankind is to rob the humankind. At the same time, Russia does not aspire to change the world in its own image. It is the fundamental principle of the new Russia to be generous and to share experience, moral values and emotional warmth, rather than to impose and coerce. It is the tradition of the Russian people to repay kindness with kindness. This is the bedrock of the Russian lifestyle, the underlying truth revealed by the great Russian culture. Free and democratic Russia will remain committed to this tenet. Today, free and democratic Russia is extending its hand of friendship to the people of America. Acting on the will of the people of Russia, I am inviting you, and through you, the people of the United States, to join us in partnership in the quest for freedom and justice in the 21st century.
Российско-американский диалог пережил не один драматический момент. Но народы России и Америки никогда не воевали друг с другом. Даже в самые черные периоды наша любовь была сильнее нашей ненависти. Говоря об этом, мне хотелось бы вспомнить о событиях 50-летней давности. Тогда шла небывалая в истории мировая война. Россия, истекавшая кровью, весь наш народ с надеждой ждали открытия Второго фронта. И он был открыт. Прежде всего, благодаря активной позиции президента Рузвельта, всего американского народа. Иногда я думаю, если бы сейчас, как и в годы той войны, был открыт второй, но мирный фронт в борьбе за демократические рыночные реформы, успех им был бы обеспечен раньше.
The Russo-American dialogue has gone through many a dramatic moment. But the peoples of Russia and America have never gone to war against each other. Even in the darkest period, our affinity prevailed over our hatred. In this context, I would like to recall something that took place 50 years ago. The unprecedented war, World War, was waging. Russia, which was bleeding white, and all our people were looking forward to the opening of the Second Front. And it was opened, first and foremost, thanks to the active stand taken by President Roosevelt and by the entire American people. Sometimes I think that if today, like during that war, a second but peaceful front could be opened to promote democratic market reforms, their success would be guaranteed earlier.
Конечно, первым шагом на этом пути могло бы стать принятие Конгрессом закона о поддержке свободы, который мы так ждем. Сегодня законодательные акты в пользу реформ значат гораздо больше, чем долларовые инъекции. Позвольте выразить надежду, что американский Конгресс – авторитетный защитник свободы и на этот раз не изменит своему стратегическому курсу. Уважаемые члены Конгресса, каждый человек несет печать своего времени. Ни для кого не делается исключение. Ни для рядового гражданина, ни для президента. Многое пережито, многое переосмыслено. И вот сейчас хотел бы закончить свое выступление словами из песни американского композитора российского происхождения Ирвина Берлина. Господи, благослови Америку. И добавлю к этому и Россию.
The passing by Congress of the Freedom Support Act could become the first step in that direction. Today, legislations promoting reforms are much more important than appropriations of funds. May I express the hope that the United States Congress, as the staunch advocate of freedom, will remain faithful to its strategic course on this occasion as well. Members of Congress, every man is a man of his own time. No exception is ever made for anyone, whether an ordinary citizen or the president. Much experience has been gained, many things have been reassessed. I would like now to conclude my statement with the words from a song by Irving Berlin, an American of Russian descent. God bless America, to which I add, and Russia.
purpose of the joint meeting having been completed, the joint meeting of the two houses is now dissolved. The House will continue in recess until 12:30 p.m.
Remarks by Russian President Boris Yeltsin. The House is now in recess for about 1/2 hour. They will reconvene at 12:30 Eastern Time. In the meantime, we are opening up our phone lines to get your reaction to this joint meeting by Boris Yeltsin before the U.S. House and Senate. 202-628-2525 for our viewers here in the East and in the Midwest. 202-783-2727 for our viewers out on the West Coast. A couple of notes. Mr. Yeltsin will now have lunch with congressional leaders, and then at about 2:30 Eastern Time, he will join President Bush for a Chesapeake Bay tour in Annapolis, Maryland, and they will have a news conference as well as a joint signing ceremony at the White House. And tonight, Mr. Yeltsin and his wife will host the President and First Lady at the Russian Embassy. San Fernando, California, our first caller. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. How are you this morning?
Fine, thanks.
Oh, good. You know, I'm looking at a Hammond map book right now of the various things that the Soviet Union has to offer. And I think that anybody who wouldn't allow George Bush to go in and make some initial investments would be absolutely crazy. The forest that they have there, to start off with just timber, is probably 4 times as much as Canada, to say nothing about the various mineral deposits. And of course they have incredible labor over there, and they really don't have areas of concentrated cities. I'm looking at another map that shows that every other country around them has concentrations of 2 million people in various cities, whereas they have none. Mm-hmm. And I think that their distribution, their natural resources, I'm sure that they have various railroads and things like that already laid down. I think that if we went over there and helped them with some mining equipment and, I guess locomotives and that kind of thing, I think that we'd really be taking advantage of something. And I don't like to use this type of analogy, but I think that this is what probably Napoleon and Hitler saw. But you know, they just went about it the wrong way, and I think that we have an absolutely excellent opportunity to have a heck of an investment made here.
Okay, thank you for the call. Flora, Illinois, you're next. Go ahead, please. Flora, Illinois, you're on the air. One more time, caller, are you with us? We'll take another call. Where are you calling from?
New Orleans.
Yes.
She put me on hold for the next call.
Okay, well, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Thank you.
You're on the air. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Yes, I'm from New Orleans, and I was watching the speech by the President of Russia, and I think that it may be a time for new cooperation, and I think that with the condition that we're now in, that we need to proceed with this.
Okay, thanks for the comment. Arlington, Virginia, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Oh, hi. My name's Robert Hoops. I'm calling from Arlington. I just thought it was one of the best speeches I've seen in a long time in that chamber. Boris Yeltsin came to town, I think, with a bit of a cloud over his head as far as being a bit of a drunk and womanizer and all those other things, and I think he's really shaken that image. He very stately and I think did himself real proud.
Thanks for the comment. San Francisco, you're next. What did you think of the speech?
Oh, I thought it was well planned. I'm glad he gave everyone a copy. But my question is this. I witnessed Congress constipated regarding $250 million for summer school, another $250 million for summer jobs, and I just can't believe that this country would give away additional billions to Russia at the same time talking about a balanced budget amendment. What do you think about that?
Well, this segment is actually to get your opinion. You obviously